Hi, and welcome to the second podcast in this practical series where we explore things that you can start right now in your work and your life. I'm joined by Dr. Sven. Are you there, Dr. Sven?
I'm here. I'm here.
Ah,
Sorry, I was just watching my phone. My apologies, Brad.
that's okay. That's okay. So when we start on this resilience journey, from your perspective, there's lots that we can do, lots that we can apply, lots of theory, but where do we actually begin?
Yeah, great question. And probably there's no perfect answer for everyone. We've thought long and hard about this. Where does it start? And if we think of time, if you want to be a quantum theorist, what's the quickest thing to have an impact? If we're talking about, okay, so I'm meeting you here this morning, and let's say I am in that cell phone posture
Yep.
or eye posture.
Yep.
Within 40 milliseconds, that's zero point zero 0.04 of a second,
Mhm.
you've already made two fundamental assumptions. One, Sven is weakened, and two, he's dialed out. Yeah, and I think that's really, really important. There's lots of good research on this, and for anyone who wants to look at it, I just sort of show the book. Professor Amy Cuddy from Harvard did this book on presence, and she talks about the science of this and the studies, and it really is very entertaining, firstly, but also gives you some of the hard evidence. But here's why I think posture and presence is key. 0.04 of a second is super fast. According to some of the work they've done at Harvard, the first thing that we assess is this person warm or cold? And the second thing we try to assess is this person competent or incompetent? It's very quick, 40 milliseconds. So, if, for example, I put on a tie today and I'm, really puffed up and on top of things, my competence may overwhelm my warmth. If I'm arms crossed, I've definitely closed off. Someone doesn't pick the warmth. So if you tell someone you're not warm, you shut down, you turned away in some way, the possibility of influencing that person is tiny, 1 in 2,000, according to Cuddy. On the other hand, if you can signal to someone first that you're open, you're connected, you're warm, you're alert, and then still show that you're competent, that's the ideal leadership mix. So we want both warmth and openness, and also a sense of competence. So I think it's really important when you think about posture and presence. And when you watch nature, for example, a troop of baboons, posture is key, right? The alpha is always sitting there, and doing its alpha stuff.
Hmm.
Whereas the submissive males around are all just a little cowed, particularly in the presence. And change of leadership happens when the alpha starts to submit and a new alpha comes in. Now, let's also flip that from inside. So here I am, studies done on this, of course, is, in eye posture, and I'm doing a task, let's say, for 5 minutes in this posture versus sitting up and working at a computer.
Yeah.
Now, someone who spends 5 minutes doing a task on the iPhone is 50% less assertive than someone who is sitting upright and working. That's 5 minutes. Most of us are spending 12 hours a day on a screen, and sometimes for some people as many as 6 hours a day on a phone.
Mhm.
That's really important. So your assertiveness is, if you like, the willingness for you to stand up, do something a little bit uncomfortable that's good for you. In this particular study, it was getting help from a supervisor in the research. So as we submit, we become much less likely to take care of ourselves, to get our needs met, to reach out to others. The question is why? And I think this is really why it's key. When you correct your posture, your testosterone levels shoot up, your cortisol, remember that's your distress chemical, drops. So testosterone can go up 15, 20%, cortisol drops from about 10, 15%. Those are significant changes. They're very, very good for you. And every time you shut down, the toxic chemicals increase and the positive chemicals go down. So it makes really good sense, to be present in your body. Equally, as you lengthen your spine, your breathing becomes more normal. You get your heart rate variability, and your heart rate slows. You breathe with the diaphragm. Right? So, the beauty of starting with posture is that to change your thinking or to change a strong emotion like fear and anxiety, it's actually very hard work. But to go from here to just gently correcting, and I'll do this in, a simple step. I'm on my device and I just remind myself to lengthen the spine, tuck the chin in a little bit, lengthen the back of the neck, and resume. That simple move, I think, is one of the best ways to start the resilience journey.
I like it.
And the more times you can do that, the more you can be yourself in your neutral posture, the better. And just to make the point, obviously, there are many young people who are not just collapsed like it. Notice their mouth breathing. Well, that's too much one way, right? But you can also be a little too much the other way and be a little bit puffed up. Yeah. Well, that's going to trigger the, careful, this person may not be so warm signals. So it's finding that neutral, flexible midpoint. That's the key.
So how does one remember these practices to straighten up in the midst of a busy
Great life? Reminder. What's practically there, all of our tracking devices, Fitbit and so on, they're quite good now, setting little reminders. And I think one of the most useful things, if you have been sitting for 40 minutes, get up, stand up for a little bit, and just allow things to move. When you stand, your feet get uncomfortable, unlike your buttocks. So when you stand, you tend to move. So I think one of the easiest things for each of us to do, right here, I'm sitting with my computer on a box. No fancy, hydraulic desk, just a box.
Yes.
And by working on that box, I can set it up so it's right for me, makes my feet move, makes my space very hard to slump when you're standing. So I think I'd probably start with that standing discipline. I think while we're working, we almost want to have regular breaks. So we talk about this in terms of the sort of daily rhythm. So, okay, I'm going to answer an email, absorb in it, respond, complete it, check it. Maybe then is a good time just to check your posture, perhaps do one stretch. You can do this sitting really easily. You can drop your hands over your back, or maybe even just a little rotation. Then come back to the email and ask the question, okay, is this sending the right message for the leadership I want to give? And if the answer is yes, press send.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So it's giving you just a little bit of distance, a little bit of relaxation time, as well as the opportunity just to come back to the neutral point. I think it's really important to say here, there's nothing wrong with slumping. At the end of the day, if you want to slump, slump. I think all that we want to say in resilience is that keep coming back to that neutral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And it's a real continuation from what we said last time, which is check body, check emotions, check mind. And this is the adjustment process. So check in.
Spot on.
How you're doing, and then start with your posture.
And Brad, this it's a difficult one, right? So, I remember when I finished medicine and I'd done some orthopedics and I was sort of curious about sports medicine. I joined this physio practice. And this physio practice was obsessive about what they called muscle balance, i.e. keep all the joints nice and flexible through the full range and keep the muscles around the joint strong and alert. So that was in the late 1980s. Most of us were blissfully unaware. Today, it's different. A lot more people have been to physio. They've thought about posture. They've had an assessment. They've been given a few exercises. But it continues to amaze me how unaware people are. So as we talked in the last session, if you're not aware if you don't ask the question, check body, nothing's going to happen. And the truth is, when I watch many of us, we aren't aware. I'm often picked out by Susan because I'm, doing a bit of work and maybe squinting at the screen, and my posture's become bad. Am I aware? No. So I got to hear from someone else. Sven, posture.
Yes.
So I think, think of this as a community thing is really useful. We do want people around us to help us be the best we can be. To hold our presence and remind us when we drift off. Of course, that's got to be done gently.
Of course.
But it's really important to be able to see your posture before you can change it and make that adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually found that certain forms of yoga where there is a mirror in the room, where if you're looking for some self-awareness, wow, it doesn't get more confronting than that. When you notice, this is how I stand, or, when I'm in my neutral position, and over time, you make those adjustments until you realize what a good posture is actually like. You start to learn the feeling of a good posture.
Absolutely. And I think, something, and I had to do this last year when I was doing a bit of training for climbing, is I went to go and see a physio because I wasn't happy with my knee.
Yes.
And to be honest, the physio was able to show me things I couldn't previously see, despite the fact I spent my entire life working in this. So I do encourage people, as part of the practical, what can I do? Perhaps go and see a physiotherapist who's qualified in the muscle balance, posture assessment, to just show you, where you are tight, where you need to strengthen things, what you can align. And I think, as you said, what it feels like to be where you are and to make the necessary adjustment.
Yes. Yeah. So what are some practical things that we can do to get started?
Yeah, no, I think that's the key question. I think really that's what this is about. There are, of course, many ways to go. My own preference, my really hotly recommended first step, take yourself through some basic stretches every morning. So, for example, I'll work through a couple, and I'll do it standing and also, just show someone. So, the first one I will do in the morning is what I call a chin tuck. So the idea going side on is to lengthen the back of your neck. So to create a stretch up through the cervical spine.
Okay.
Very important to start, because often, you've been sleeping a little odd and your neck is tight. You've got a bit of a creak in it. And then if you start doing the other stretches, you'll hurt it. So that length in the neck, and, it's something that's very important for that presence, is a long upright neck. The second you send it down like this, you've lost. So tuck in, breathing for 10 seconds, relax. Tuck it in, breathe 10 seconds, relax. Always. Second one, once you feel like some of those cricks have gone out, I like to stretch what's called the trapezius muscle. That's where we hold a lot of our distress. So again, you do the tuck, then you gently lower your ear to the shoulder.
Yeah.
Keeping this shoulder down, all right? And you gently twist. Sorry, not twist, you're just going down to the side, and you'll feel a stretch through there. You don't want to overdo this. Again, 10 seconds, breathing easy. Same on the other side. All right, now you might do at the last tuck and then put a rotation into it.
Okay.
So one of the ways, when we get a sore neck and we sort of look around like this, it makes one look very old and very vulnerable.
It does.
All right, so that basic neck function, I think, is always every morning. I love this one when I'm sitting or standing. Just holding the hands behind you, looking up at the ceiling, gently inhale and exhale. All right, so you're opening.
Yeah.
So remember we talked about neutral, collapsed, and then too much. Well, to be able to be neutral, you want to be able to go both ways.
Yes.
So, okay, it's like the cat and dog pose, where you sit on the floor and you hollow your back, and then you hunch your back, and you hollow your back, and you hunch your back. It's a beautiful way to bring health and resilience into your spine.
Yeah.
Okay, so once I've done that one I showed earlier, just reaching down behind your back. Again, breathing for that one, absolutely key. And then one I've become much more keen on and actually really enjoying. So if you take your right hand, hold the left hand, so you straighten the left arm upwards and you push down into the left leg and then gently arch to the side.
Yeah, that's
a stretch down through the shoulder, ribs, and even the side of the belly, and maybe through your hips even. And again, holding that 10 seconds, breathing evenly and repeating, pushing up now the right hand, down with the right leg, and down to the opposite side. Right, so I think, one could just start with that. One of my favorites also is a good old yoga dog pose.
Yes.
Where you go down all fours, and you lift your knees up and you push your hips back. It's a wonderful pose to just sort of balance out the body, open the shoulders, create the strength and relaxation in the neck. Those are some, Brad. What are some of your favorites?
I find that some of Amy Cuddy's power poses are great go-tos when you've been in those low power postures for long periods of time. In terms of the morning, absolutely. And it's interesting how you can feel the difference between waking up, or if you've been at your desk for a couple of hours, and then just stopping, allowing that micro break. It can be 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. And suddenly you feel completely fresh and energized again. But it's a case of remembering to do it. But then, as I said, those Amy Cuddy power poses are really interesting. Some people laugh when you probably wouldn't break them out in the middle of a meeting, but certainly in our workshops we do it, and people go, "Wow, that was so much fun." It's just a change of posture. Maybe you could talk us through a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, Cuddy is partly an entertainer, so I guess I'm a little cautious, but I think some of it definitely has merit.
Yes.
I definitely notice, having worked, and I think all of us have, if you close your arms, you're blocking others out. Now, you might say, I feel comfortable, I feel cold. Those are all good rationalizations, but when you're sitting there with other human beings, that is a barrier. It's a please don't come any closer, don't ask me any sensitive questions, I'm not really here. That's the message it sends, regardless of what you're saying to yourself. So I think a real quick shift is to move from closed postures like this to being more open, and ideally, if you even the CIA says this, if you can show openness, the ultimate, and we have someone we know who used to do this on stage. I mean, that's maybe taking it a bit too far, but going from closed to open would be the first submission power shift.
Yeah.
Interesting one that I think is maybe to be done in private or in select situations, but we know that even in blind people who've never seen, when they feel great, we all celebrate like this.
Yeah.
So I wonder, if maybe in those early hours in the morning before anyone else is awake or in the bathroom, you just every now and again really, almost fake a celebration. Because that's what we do when we win, when we feel we've been successful. And it's a beautiful thing to witness when you see someone else doing that unconsciously, when they've won something or succeeded in a task. The slumping, I think, is terribly dangerous. And this neck signal, that when you put your head forward like this, you are increasing the weight on the neck support muscles 27 times. So the brain and skull are quite a heavy system, 10 Ks of. Now you put it off like this, it's like a crane. Whereas if you can hold your neck here, it's much less distressing. So you'd be less tired at the end of the day, which again will lead to more power. Amy Cuddy talks about this Wonder Woman pose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's appropriate for all of us, but it has very good research. That's where they showed just simply a couple of minutes in that pose, and you've jacked up your testosterone, male or female, and you've reduced your cortisol. It makes you a better executive in a tricky situation.
It's interesting. I remember hearing Tony Robbins say, I've been teaching this for 20 plus years. And it took a Harvard study for anyone to believe me. But he has been saying, change your state and it will change your mind.
Yeah. And I think, it goes back to what we've been singing, our version of that: check body, check emotion, check mind.
Yeah.
I think, right at the beginning, you pointed out, Brad, is we're sort of suggesting start with your body, but actually it comes down to awareness.
Yeah.
You have to, at the end of this kind of session, be saying, I wonder how I sit. I wonder what signals I'm sending to people. What are my stretches? Would it be worthwhile? That's called, self-awareness or insight. So that's using the mind to look in the mirror, as you described it, back at yourself.
Absolutely.
Many people simply don't want to do that. All right. So we've got to use the mind to see. And then we can make our little adjustments. And then I think a really important part of all these practical sessions, each one of us has to work through what's going to work best for me. Well, I like those Sven stretches. I can do that every morning. That's easy. Or, I'd rather do my yoga. That's worked for me for 10 years. Or some will do their Tai Chi. Very important principle here. Check body, adjust body, but choose the practice that works best for you. Maybe try a few and then settle on something that you can do easily. So from my point of view, I think you want to make your posture and presence automatic, habitual.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something that's locked into every single day. By the time you have that first sip of tea or coffee in the morning, you've already done the basic neck posture stretches.
Yeah.
It's just done, right? And that gives you a head start. Now you add that little stretch every day for, say, 10 years, you're going to be walking around a very different person.
Yes.
Young, old. It's going to make you healthier. It's going to increase, remember, the sort of sense of joy and fulfillment. And most importantly, perhaps, it really sends a signal to other people. Here I am, fully aware, fully alert, and ready to engage.
Yes. So in the beginning, you might practically start off with some reminders. Set a reminder. Use your calendar for your own well-being. Set a reminder for every hour to adjust. But over time, these practices do become automatic. And then, maybe scale it up. Start to introduce some new ones that are going to support you even more.
Absolutely right. I think, in sports, we talk about extrinsic and intrinsic learning. All of this starts as extrinsic.
Yeah.
We need to actually, do it, think about it, be aware, use the mind. And as it becomes a habit, it becomes intrinsic. You just naturally wake up. Your body wants to stretch. You don't have to ask it. It just does it for you. That's really good. And I think you're absolutely right. There are levels. And each one of us wants to work out how far do we go, An advanced yogi, well, they got to invest an hour and a half or 2 hours a day in that practice. That's hard. Is that necessary? I don't think necessarily. But I do think, if we're going to start this resilience journey, put your body in a state that gives you a better than even chance of succeeding. If your body's in the right place, the emotions, the mind will move more generously in ways that will serve you.
Makes a lot of sense. And the benefits being, maybe we could run through some of those benefits for people going, should I embark on this journey? Shall I try and embed some of these practices into my routine? The benefits are, it increases your assertiveness, your posture, your alignment.
Leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, one of the things that is very humbling and always catches me, you look at an older person who hasn't looked at their posture and they've got this real dowager hump, and you can see they're walking around, they can barely look forward because they've become frozen. So in terms of a longevity point of view, to be able to enjoy the 80 plus years we're getting today, taking care of your posture is not trivial.
That's important.
Yeah,
absolutely. Love it. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up the second episode. Feel free to practice these things over the next week, and we look forward to continuing.
We'll pop the stretch sheet maybe up on the site as well.
We definitely will. The stretch sheet and some resources, links to Amy Cuddy's book, if you're interested.
Hey, Brad. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Check, adjust.
Yep. I don't know if you noticed, but at the beginning we were both in one of these postures, and I think we've made some adjustments, which is going to set us up for a good day.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brad.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate the time.